Evan spent weeks planning his little sister's birthday. He arrived early, hung every decoration himself, hid the cake where no one would find it. Then the bullies showed up. They didn't just wreck the party. They made sure she'd remember this day for all the wrong reasons. So Evan did something no one saw coming. He grabbed his sister's hand, got on his bike, and rode straight to the one place everyone in town avoided. Evan checked his watch for the third time in 10 minutes. 1:40 p.m. Still over an hour before anyone was supposed to arrive. Perfect. He knelt beside the cooler, adjusting the ice packs around Lily's cake. Chocolate with purple frosting, her favorite. He'd ordered it from the bakery 2 weeks ago, paid for it himself with money from mowing lawns and walking Mrs. Oliver's dog. The woman behind the counter had smiled when he explained it was for his little sister. Lucky girl, she'd said. He tied the last balloon to the swing set, purple and silver catching the afternoon light. The hand-painted banner stretched between 2 fence posts. Happy 8th birthday, Lily. His handwriting wasn't great, but he'd practiced the letters on scrap paper until they looked right. Evan, can I see it yet? Lily called from near the slide, spinning in circles with her eyes squeezed shut. Not yet. 5 more minutes. A couple of younger kids from down the street had wandered over early. Tommy and his sister Maya. They stood near the seesaw, watching Evan work with the quiet fascination kids have when they sense something special happening. Is there gonna be a piñata? Tommy asked. Evan pointed to the tree branch. Right there. I made it myself. It wasn't professional. Crepe paper wrapped around a cardboard box, stuffed with dollar store candy. But Lily wouldn't care. She'd care that he remembered she wanted one. He stepped back, surveying his work. The playground looked nothing like it usually did. Forgotten, rusted. A place parents warned their kids away from after dark. Right now, it looked like it mattered. That's when he heard the bikes. Not motorcycles. BMX bikes, wheels scraping pavement, brakes squealing as they skidded to a stop at the playground entrance. Evan's stomach dropped. There were 4 of them. Older teens, maybe 16 or 17. He recognized them immediately. Julius, the one who'd shoved him into lockers last month. His friend Connor, who'd stolen Evan's lunch twice. The other 2 he didn't know by name, but their expressions told him enough. Julius saw the decorations and his face split into a grin that made Evan's skin crawl. Well, look at this, Julius said, climbing off his bike. Someone's having a party. Evan moved instinctively, positioning himself between the teens and the cooler. We're not bothering anyone. Didn't say you were. Julius walked closer, examining the banner. This for your little sister? That's sweet. Really sweet. Connor laughed. How much did all this cost you? Leave, Evan said quietly. The word came out smaller than he intended. Please. Or what? Julius tilted his head. You gonna make us? Lily had stopped spinning. She stood near the slide now, watching. Tommy and Maya had gone silent. Julius reached up and yanked the banner down. The tape ripped, letters tearing. He crumpled it into a ball and tossed it onto the ground. Oops. Evan's hands shook. Stop. But they didn't stop. Connor kicked over the cooler. Ice spilled across the pavement, and Evan watched the cake box tumble out, lid popping open. Purple frosting smeared against the concrete. One of the other teens grabbed a spray paint can from his backpack and tagged the slide with quick, careless strokes. Black paint across bright yellow metal. You should have picked a better spot, Julius said, already climbing back onto his bike. This playground's trash anyway. They left the way they came, wheels spinning, laughter echoing behind them. Evan's ears rang in the silence that followed. One of the deflated balloons scraped against the fence, a sound like something dying. He became aware of his own breathing shallow, too fast. Tommy and Maya hadn't moved. They were waiting for him to do something, fix this somehow. Lily walked over slowly, staring at the ruined cake. She didn't cry. She just looked at him. Tommy whispered, Should we tell someone? Evan calculated quickly. The adults wouldn't arrive for another hour. By then, those decorations would be trash, the spray paint permanent, and Julius would be home eating dinner like nothing happened. And even if Evan called someone, what would happen? A police report? A shrug? Those teens lived 3 blocks away. They'd come back. He looked at the destroyed decorations, the smashed cake, the spray paint still dripping down the slide. Then he looked at his sister. Lily, he said carefully, do you trust me? She nodded. Okay. He grabbed his bike. We're going somewhere. Where? Evan didn't answer right away. He just started pedaling, motioning for her to follow. Tommy and Maya watched them go, confused. They rode through familiar streets, then past the school, then toward the edge of town where the roads turned rougher and the buildings looked different. Evan had passed this area before but never stopped. Never had a reason to. Until now. The clubhouse sat at the end of a gravel lot. Motorcycles lined up outside. A wooden sign hung crooked near the door. Evan's heart hammered. Lily's voice was small. Evan, what are we doing here? He didn't know how to explain. He just knew the adults couldn't help in time. The police wouldn't stop what came next. And he was tired of being the kid everyone pushed around. A man in a leather vest stood outside, bent over a motorcycle engine. He hadn't noticed them yet. Evan took a breath. Then he stepped forward. The man didn't look up immediately. He kept working on the motorcycle, hands stained with grease. A tool Evan couldn't name balanced between his fingers. Evan swallowed hard. Lily squeezed his hand tight enough to hurt. Excuse me, Evan said. Nothing. Sir. The man paused, wiped his hands on an old rag and finally glanced up. His expression gave nothing away. No irritation at being interrupted, no pity, just assessment. Evan had seen that look before, on teachers deciding whether to believe his excuses, on store clerks watching to see if he'd steal something. But this felt different. This man was actually seeing him. You too lost? No. Evan forced his voice steady. I need help. The man straightened fully. He was bigger than Evan had imagined, broad shoulders, graying beard trimmed close. But when he spoke, his voice was calm. Help with what? Evan took a breath. He couldn't exaggerate, couldn't cry, had to just tell the truth. There's some older kids who've been messing with me at school. Today I organized a birthday party for my sister. Got there early to set everything up. They showed up and destroyed it. Ripped down the banner, crushed the cake, spray painted the playground. I tried to make them stop, but his voice cracked for a second. They laughed and left. The man said nothing for a long moment, just studied Evan's face like he was searching for something specific. How old are you? 13. And her? 8. Today. The man nodded slowly, then asked a question Evan didn't expect. What was she most excited about? Evan blinked. What? For the party. What did your sister want most? The answer came instantly. The purple streamers. She asked specifically for purple because it's her favorite color. And I made a piñata. It wasn't perfect, but I filled it with candy she likes. Oh, and I was going to light sparklers at sunset because she's never seen them up close and always wanted to. The corner of the man's mouth curved slightly. Not quite a smile, but close. Wait here. He went inside the clubhouse. Evan heard muffled voices, the sound of chairs scraping. Lily moved closer to him. Evan, are they going to help? She whispered. I don't know. But he had hope. Strange, irrational thing, but it was there. The door opened again. This time it wasn't just the man. Others emerged behind him. 5, 6 people. Men and women of different ages, all wearing leather vests with patches Evan couldn't quite read. A woman with short hair and tattoos down her arms crouched in front of Lily. Hi, sweetheart. What's your name? Lily. Pretty name. I'm Diane. She tilted her head, studying Lily's face. Today's your birthday? Lily nodded, still half hidden behind Evan's arm. Well then, Diane smiled. We're gonna have to fix that, aren't we? The first man, Evan still didn't know his name, crossed his arms. Where's this playground? Evan gave the address. One of the other bikers was already pulling out his phone, typing into maps. 10 minutes from here. Perfect. The man looked at Evan again. These kids who did this, they the type to come back? Evan hesitated, then nodded. Usually, they like to finish what they start. Got it. The man exchanged glances with the others. Something unspoken passed between them. All right. Guile grabbed the tools from the truck. Diane, call Jake. See if he still has those paints from the renovation. Rest of you, bring whatever's useful. They moved with an efficiency that caught Evan off guard. No hesitation. Within 5 minutes, a pickup was being loaded with toolboxes, paint cans, strings of lights still in packaging. Guile, so that was his name, walked back to Evan. Put a hand on the boy's shoulder, heavy but not threatening. You did the right thing coming here, he said quietly. A lot of people wouldn't have had the guts. I didn't know what else to do. And you still did something. That matters. Guile glanced at Lily, who was talking with Diane about paint colors. You riding your bikes back? Yes. Then head out first. We'll bring the equipment and meet you there. Guile waited until he had the boys' full attention. When we get there, you let us work. Don't try to do everything alone again. Understood. Evan nodded. His chest felt compressed, like someone had tightened a strap around his ribs. They pedaled back the same route, but this time it felt different. Less frightening. Evan's legs burned from pedaling fast, but he barely noticed. He kept glancing back, expecting Guile to change his mind, to realize this was too much trouble for some random kid. But the sound of engines stayed steady behind them. They were actually coming. People he didn't know were actually showing up. Evan still didn't fully understand what was happening, but he felt like maybe things could actually be fixed. When they reached the playground, the damage was still there. Smashed cake, deflated balloons, black paint dripping down the slide. But 3 minutes later, they heard the sound of engines, and everything started to change. The motorcycles rolled into the parking lot in a line, engines rumbling low before cutting off one by one. Evan watched as the bikers dismounted, already moving with purpose before anyone gave instructions. Guile surveyed the playground with the same focused look he'd had when examining his motorcycle. He walked the perimeter slowly, testing the swing chains with his weight, running a hand along the monkey bars, crouching to inspect the bolts holding the seesaw in place. When's the last time anyone maintained this? He called out. Nobody answered because nobody knew. Diane opened a toolbox and pulled out sandpaper, handing a sheet to Lily. See that bench over there? The green one? Feel how rough it is. Lily ran her fingers across the splintered wood and winced. Exactly. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to sand it smooth, then paint it. What color do you think? Purple. Purple it is. Diane grinned. But we should probably do more than one bench, right? What other colors? Yellow. And maybe blue. I like the way you think. Evan stood frozen, watching them work. A biker he didn't know was already climbing the play structure, tightening bolts with a wrench that looked too big for the job but somehow fit perfectly. Another was scrubbing the spray paint off the slide with some kind of chemical that made the black streaks dissolve into nothing. Guile appeared beside Evan. You know how to use a screwdriver? Yeah. Good. See those loose panels on the playhouse? They need reinforcing before some kid catches their hand in the gap. Show me you can do it. It wasn't a question. It was an invitation. Evan grabbed the tools and got to work. His hands shook at first, but the repetitive motion steadied him. Screw in, tighten, move to the next one. Simple. Concrete. Something he could control. He'd spent so long planning everything alone, sketching the layout in his notebook during lunch, counting his money 3 times to make sure he had enough. Now there were hands everywhere, fixing things he hadn't even thought to fix. It should have felt like losing control. Instead, it felt like breathing room. By the time he finished, 2 more trucks had arrived. People Evan didn't recognize started unloading supplies, not just paint and tools, but decorations. Real ones. String lights in waterproof casing. A folding table. A cooler that looked like it could survive a hurricane. Word travels fast, Guile said, noticing Evan's expression. Jake called his sister. She called some friends. Now we've got reinforcements. A woman in her 50s stepped out of one of the trucks, carrying what looked like an entire bakery in her arms. She spotted Lily and smiled. I heard someone needed a birthday cake. Lily's eyes went wide. The cake was bigger than the one Evan had bought. 3 layers, purple frosting with silver stars piped along the edges. I didn't order, Evan started. I know. Consider it a gift. Name's Rosa. I run the bakery on 5th Street. She set the cake carefully on the folding table. The one you ordered was beautiful, by the way. I remember you. You counted out the money in singles and quarters. Heat crept up Evan's neck. I'm sorry, I didn't mean. Nothing to apologize for. That cake was made with love. This one is too. Just bigger. The sun was dropping lower, painting everything in amber light. Evan looked around and barely recognized the playground. The benches were no longer splintered death traps but smooth, painted surfaces in colors Lily had chosen. The swings hung evenly, chains replaced and oiled. Someone had scrubbed years of grime off the play structure, revealing colors Evan forgot existed. But it was more than repair work. They'd added things. Solar lights wrapped around poles. A small speaker playing music. Nothing loud, just background noise that made the space feel alive. Flowers in recycled planters near the entrance. Neighbors started appearing. Parents Evan recognized from school drop-off. Kids from surrounding blocks. An elderly man who lived across the street and usually yelled at anyone making noise. Except he wasn't yelling now. He was talking to Guile, gesturing at the playground, nodding slowly. Tommy and Maya returned, wide-eyed. Tommy grabbed Evan's arm. Dude, what did you do? I asked for help. From bikers. Yeah. Tommy looked around at the transformed playground, at Lily laughing while Diane taught her how to tie proper knots in the streamer ribbons, at the cake that seemed too nice for a random Tuesday afternoon. That's the coolest thing I've ever heard. By the time the first official party guests arrived, kids from Lily's class, their confused parents, the playground looked nothing like it had 3 hours ago. It looked cared for, intentional, like someone had decided it mattered. One of the mothers approached Evan cautiously. Did you do all this? No, they did. He gestured to the bikers, most of whom were packing up tools now, preparing to leave the space to the actual party. The woman glanced at Guile, at Diane, at the others. Her expression shifted from suspicion to something else. Understanding, maybe, or respect. Well, it's beautiful. Guile caught Evan's eye from across the playground. Gave a small nod. Not goodbye, just acknowledgement. The work was done. The playground wasn't just fixed. It was reclaimed. And the party was only beginning. The party had been running for almost an hour when Evan saw them. Julius and his friends, bikes coasting slowly down the street toward the playground. They weren't rushing. Why would they? They expected to find exactly what they'd left. Destruction, tears, a ruined birthday. Evan's stomach clenched. He glanced around quickly. Most of the bikers had moved to the edges of the playground, giving the kids space to actually celebrate. But they were still there. Guile leaned against his motorcycle near the entrance. Diane sat on a bench, sipping coffee from a thermos. They'd seen the teens too. Julius stopped at the playground entrance, 1 foot on the ground, staring. Connor pulled up beside him, equally frozen. The decorations they'd destroyed were gone, replaced by something better. String lights glowed softly between poles. Music played from speakers they hadn't smashed because they didn't exist before. Kids ran across equipment that gleamed with fresh paint. And in the center of it all, Lily wore a handmade crown, laughing as she tried to hit the piñata Guile had helped rehang. What the? Connor started. Guile straightened, didn't advance, didn't speak. Arms crossed, he became a wall without moving an inch. 2 other bikers materialized from different corners of the playground. Not surrounding the teens. Not threatening. Just present. Standing watch. Julius's eyes darted between the bikers, the transformed playground, and Evan, who stood near the cake table. For once, Julius looked uncertain. We were just, he began. Leaving, Guile said. Not loud. Not angry. Just definitive. Connor grabbed Julius's arm. Come on. Julius hesitated, like he wanted to say something. Save face. assert control. But the words didn't come. He looked at Evan one more time, and Evan didn't look away. For a second, Evan saw something flicker across Julius's face. Not quite regret, something closer to confusion. Like he'd expected consequences to look different. Not this quiet redistribution of power. They left. No shouting. No threats. Just the sound of bike tires against pavement, fading into the distance. Evan released a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. "They won't come back," Giles said quietly. Evan hadn't heard him approach. "How do you know?" "Because they know someone's paying attention now. And people like that." Giles shrugged. "They only pick fights they think they can win." More parents arrived as the sun continued its descent. Evan watched their faces as they took in the playground, the confusion giving way to wonder, then curiosity. One father approached the elderly neighbor who'd been talking to Giles earlier. "What happened here? This morning it looked different," the old man finished. "Boy over there asked for help. Got it. Simple as that." The party swelled beyond anything Evan had planned. Neighbors he barely knew brought food. Someone started a grill. Kids who weren't even invited showed up because word had spread that something special was happening at the old playground. Lily stood in the center of it all, clutching the stuffed wolf Diane had pulled from her truck. "Had it for my niece, but she's got plenty," looking overwhelmed in the best possible way. At some point, Evan found himself standing alone near the monkey bars, just watching. An older woman he recognized from the corner store was talking to Rosa about recipes. The elderly man who usually yelled was teaching Tommy how to check if a swing chain was secure. It hit him then, not like a revelation, more like an exhale. This wasn't just about fixing Lily's party anymore. This was about proving the playground could matter again. That the neighborhood could show up for itself. "Pretty good for a Tuesday, huh?" Evan turned. Giles stood beside him, hands in his pockets. "I just wanted her to have a good birthday," Evan said. "She's got that." Giles nodded toward Lily, still perched on Diane's shoulders, laughing. "But you gave these people something else. Reminded them what's possible when someone actually asks." "Evan," Lily tugged his shirt. "Is this real?" "Yeah, Lil. It's real. Best birthday ever?" He couldn't speak, just nodded. As twilight deepened, the bikers began preparing to leave. Tools packed away, trucks loaded, gear secured. Giles found Evan near the swings. "You did good today," Giles said. "I didn't do anything. You guys, you asked. That's harder than it sounds." Giles pulled a card from his vest pocket, handed it to Evan. "Just a phone number, nothing else. You ever need something, you call. Anything. Why are you helping me?" Giles was quiet for a moment. "Because somebody helped me once. Long time ago when I needed it. Figured I'd pass it forward." He glanced at Lily, still playing with the other kids despite the late hour. "You take care of her, but don't carry everything alone. That's the difference between breaking and bending." Evan tucked the card into his pocket. "Thank you." "Don't thank me. Just remember it." The motorcycles lined up in formation, engines rumbling to life one by one. It wasn't aggressive or showy. It was controlled, purposeful, the kind of sound that commanded attention without demanding fear. They rolled past the playground slowly, a procession that made the kids stop playing to watch. Lily stood on a bench, waving frantically. Some of the bikers waved back. Others just nodded. Then they were gone, taillights disappearing down the street. The party continued for another hour, winding down naturally as kids got tired and parents started gathering belongings. Evan helped clean up, though there wasn't much to clean. The bikers had left the place better than they'd found it. His mom arrived late, apologizing profusely. Her shift had run over. She stopped in the parking lot, staring at the transformed playground, at the decorations, at Lily's face smeared with frosting and pure joy. "Evan, how did you?" "I asked for help," he said simply. She pulled him into a hug that lasted longer than usual. When she released him, she blinked rapidly, turning her face away. "I'm sorry I wasn't here earlier." "It's okay. We figured it out." Walking home, Lily held his hand, half asleep on her feet. She clutched the stuffed wolf in her other arm, the handmade crown slightly crooked on her head. Evan, yeah. When I grow up, I want to help people like they helped us. He squeezed her hand. I think you will, Lil. Back in their apartment, after Lily had finally crashed, still wearing her crown, Evan sat on his bed and pulled out Giles' card. Just a phone number. Nothing fancy. But it felt like more than that. It felt like proof that asking for help wasn't giving up. It was choosing to stand up differently. Sometimes the people we're taught to fear are the ones who show up when no one else will. Evan learned that asking for help isn't weakness. It's survival. What would you have done in Evan's place? Drop your thoughts below. And if this story touched you, hit that subscribe button. Embrace the Journey brings you stories that remind us what community really means. See you in our next video.